Okay, so what I want to show you all is I'm working with a couple of the student examples from TurboSquid. One is the security camera. Another is this TV set. And we can actually go back in from the beginning. And then we also have this amazing portal. So in TurboSquid, you need to make an account, and then you can go into download. And each one of these has different file formats. You can see here it's available in the FBX. So in this, there's only one object to download, so option. So I'll say download. And then you can see here it gives you the download option, so you click on the file for the download. I've already done that. You can see the security cam here. And the TV set, so we also wanted to download the TV set, so I'll go back into download, and it will take us back to the same menu option. There's more options here, so I want to see show all. So in this case, there's actually a Blender file. Since we're going to be using Blender to package all of our assets, that is great because we want, full access to the kind of design file. So I wouldn't even mess around with any of the other files. If there is a Blender file option, go ahead and download the zip Blender file. In the case of this portal, I'm going to say download, and it shows me that I have a Blender file option as well. But there's also this OBJ and this material, and this texture zip. So the thing about, I wouldn't necessarily want to download the FBX file. FBXs, as we've noticed, can be tricky because they're packaging everything all one file together. But unlike the gltf file formats, they haven't really been standardized. So it can be really hit or miss with the FBX file. So if we did not have the Blender file available to us in this case, I would download the OBJ file, which is the geometry. The textures.zip which is gonna have all of the image textures associated with the file. And then this material file, which is the file that sits in between the 3D geometry and the image textures. So I'm gonna download all three of these. And then I'm also going to download the Blender file just in case. So I'm going to use this example to show you how you would go about, packaging with the OBJ file. So once I've downloaded everything, I used my default location, but it's actually going to be really important to create a master folder where all of these files coexist. And let me see if I can. There we go. So I'm going to move all of these files, say new Finder window. I'm going to go into my downloads, into my Factory of the Sun folder. I'm going to make a new folder in here. I'm going to say FOTS, objects, close enough. New folder, and I'm going to name portal, and then I'm going to make another folder for the camera. My horrible typing skills. A new folder, and then I'm going to make a new one for the TV. And then I'm going to drag all of the ancient portal files into the portal folder. This is really important that they all exist in kind of one master folder. They're going to be looking for one another, kind of like a website looks for image files in certain directories. All of these objects in portal are going to be looking for one another inside the same folder. The same is true for, all of these other files, but since these are Blender files, it's going to be less important. So security camera, I have the FBX, and then for the TV, I've got the Blender file. All right, so then I'm going to want to make sure that I uncompress, so expand. So I'm going to say, let's see, I guess. So there's my Blender file, and then it uncompressed with the textures. And then I don't think I need to, maybe the portal here, although it's fine. Open with, expand the zip. Yeah, so same thing, it's given us a textures folder and then this portal blend file. But we're going to be using the OBJ for this one. All right, so now I'm going to go back into Blender. So I've taken care of all of my kind of project management. The TV blend file. This security cam is an FBX, so I won't uncompress it. But I might need to, once I'm in Blender, I'll know if I need to do kind of futz around with anything inside. And I might end up needing to extract things. I'm going to go into Blender and make a new Blender file. I'm going to select all, hit X, and then delete. I'm going to say File, Import, and I'll start with the FBX. And that is the TV set. So I'm going to go back into my downloads, Factory of the Sun, Objects, and the TV. Oh, no, that was the security camera. Import. Yeah, so it says version 3000 unsupported. So this is one of those cases where I think because of the FBX file format, we might not be able to use the camera in this application. I can try, opening it up with another 3D program or converting it, but I think at this point, any of the objects that you download in FBX, if it's only available in FBX and it doesn't work, I would move on because I think it's going to be way more trouble than it's worth to get those FBX going. All right, so I'm going to do File, New. So we're moving on from camera. There's plenty of cameras available, so you can find other, security cameras in file formats that work. So I'm going to say File, New. Don't save. And that's just because I don't want, in case anything funny got imported or there's any warnings, I just want to start from scratch. So I'm going to say File. In this case, I'm going to import the OBJ for the TV. So I'm going to say OBJ. And then because the OBJ file is in the same file folder, let's move up, find those. The TV. Because everything, oh wait, no, it wasn't the TV, I did the portal. Sorry, keep forgetting which is which. So because this material file and the textures is all in the same folder, all I need to do is open this OBJ file and it will necessarily look for this material file, which handles all of the location data for the image files in this texture folder. Okay, so it's imported and I need to zoom out a little, and here are all of my objects. First thing that I'm noticing right off the bat is that this kind of origin, so this is the kind of center, what will be nominally considered the center of the object around which it will rotate, etc., is not anywhere near the actual geometry. And this can become a problem in New Art City. So the first thing that I want to do is move this origin to the center of the geometry. Because these are all different objects, it's slightly more complicated. I'm going to first need to move select kind of the central object, which I'm going to use the stairs, and I'm going to say Object, and then I'm going to snap the cursor to the, actually maybe I can actually set origin to geometry. So it's going to set the origin to the center of whatever I've selected, which is this geometry. Now I'm going to say Object, and I'm going to say Snap cursor to selected, which now moves that little cursor, that kind of red and white thing, around the object. So that newly defined origin. Now, once I've done that, I can do a box select for select all, and I'm going to say Object set origin to the cursor. So now all of these objects have the same origin. It's roughly in the center of the geometry. It's going to make our lives much easier when we move into New Art City. Just out of an abundance of caution, I'm actually going to drag this object kind of more or less to the center of my Blender file. All right, so now I can move into the texturing of this image, or this file. So in a perfect world, I would click on this texture viewport, It's going to have a little think, and then everything would come in beautifully. And I can see that that is actually not the case here. So this bright pink means that there's an image file that's disconnected that Blender's looking for, but it can't find. So I'm going to select the pink thing, and I'm going to go into my shading view, and then I'm going to double check to see like what is it looking for, and see if I can actually kind of find that. So it's looking for, can I zoom into this view? There we go. It is looking for an image here, and let's try this out, called Rock 020 2K color. So if I go back into my Finder window and take a look at like what downloaded with this portal object, I can go into my portal textures, and here's where all the images are supposed to be. So I can see that this is technically the Rock 020, but already right off the bat I see 2K versus 4K, so that makes me a little weary. And then sure enough, yeah, I go into my files here, and I can see that it's not actually named. It's looking for a file named 2K, and these are all 4K images. So this is a common problem with packaged OBJ files, right? Like things don't need to match exactly. They might not match exactly, and then you run into these problems. So one way that we can fix this is by reconnecting all of the images. So I can say, click on my file folder and look for my portal and my textures into the rock, and then just use the rock texture. And I want to double check to see what it's looking for. It's looking for the color image. So I'm going to find the color image and say open image. And now if I go back into my layout, it's no longer pink. The only other thing though is, thinking about the nomenclature there, and I didn't check, but like 4K images are huge, and we're trying to package for the web. So if I click on 4K color, yeah, it's 18.9 megabytes. We're trying to create total files that have a total package size of 5 megabytes or less. So I think, before I go in and do anything, let's see, where's my color? 22 megabytes. These are too big. These are too big. So before I do anything else, I'm actually going to go in and edit these images in Photoshop so that they are much smaller, right? Right now, this 4K color is 4,000 pixels by 4,000 pixels. It will never need to be that big for our application on the web. If you're rendering, sure, you want as high a resolution image as possible because you're rendering out still images. You want that really gorgeous, crispy color, but we're trying to optimize for efficiency. So this is way too big. And the other thing that I notice is that there's a roughness map, a normal map, a displacement map, and then this ambient occlusion. Again, great if you're rendering, but one, in New Art City, we're never going to use any of these. So I'm actually going to delete those nodes from the shaders. So first I'll do that. I'm going to select my mound, my cube 1, and then I'm going to go into the shading node again and take a look at the node network. And yeah, so that normal map, I don't need that. We're just going to delete that. Delete. And I'm pressing X, selecting the node and just pressing X. So now all we have is a color going into the base color, going out into the material output. Wonderful. That is all we need for the rock shading node. That all looks great. And then I'm going to do the same thing under my layout for the stairs, which is called wall, and I forget which texture we're using, but that's fine. So I'll go back into shading. There we go. And delete the normal map. All right, so perfect. So we've just got the image, base color. Wonderful. And then I'm going to do the same thing for these metal pieces, because each one of these pieces is a unique piece, but they're all being driven by the same let me just double check to make sure that's true. Metal, metal, metal. Yeah, they're all using the same image texture. So I'm just going to go ahead and all I need to do is delete the normal map from the metal node network, and it will apply to all of them. So texture coordinates, and that's just telling, you know, Blender where to map the image onto the geometry. So I want to keep that, and want to keep this image driving the base color, but everything else can go. Looks great. All right, so next step then is to create smaller versions of this image file. This looks a little bit funny. What is, oh yeah, so look here. Look here, she says, zoom in. Oh, I can't zoom in when it's selected. Sorry about that. I'm on a laptop. So this is actually using the roughness image to drive the color data, which we don't want, which again, like, is why if you can download the Blender file, and all of this is going to be set up properly. Otherwise you're kind of beholden on this like texture file, which might not import quite correctly. So I'm going to double check to make sure that all of the color images that are driving all of this, not these other weird nodes. It's the same thing. Going to click on the folder, and I'm going to go up one, and I want to go into the rock, is it ground, and use, double check this. Yeah, it's using metal. Oh, metal, sorry. Metal, and then not roughness. I want to use the color data. Open image. That looks better, and a little bit more like the reference image too. All right, so we've kind of figured out that. Let's just double check all of the others. Color data, check. And color, great. Okay, so we've got the color driving the base color, color images driving the base color. It's like might not matter too much because I'm going to go in and change these images. So we're going to have to reconnect everything, but it's good to just double check the workflow. All right, so I'm going to open Photoshop, and you know, if I wasn't using this application and to export for efficiency for New York City, and the 4K images, you know, there's more efficient ways to do this, like doing it like by batch, applying the same recorded action to all of the files in a certain folder. But for our workflow today, sorry, it's already been a long day. We don't need, I'm just going to do it one by one. So I'm going to open up the color image, open. I'm going to say, I'm going to open up file, open the metal color image. It's gorgeous. And then I'm going to open up file, open the rock color image. I'm going to downsize all of these. So image size, and let's see what happens when I do like 1200 by 1200. Like I can still see resolution, pixels per inch. I'll say 72. It's still 4.22 megabytes, right? So that's, is that true? Oh my gosh, that's even bigger than what I was thinking it was. Downloads. I'm going to double check here. Rock color. 18.9 megabytes. I don't know where it's getting. Well, let's just see what happens when I save this. Reduce noise, preserve details. Okay. I'm going to say file. Now it's 4.2, but that's still like, it seems really big. Say file, save as. And I'm going to make a new folder in the top level in our ancient portal textures. I'm going to say, call it new folder, portal, textures, resize. Save it as a JPEG and save. And I'm going to use a medium quality. And let's double check to see. Yeah, 396 kilobytes. So let's start there. I'm going to use the, I guess, 1215 for each one of these. And if I was smart, I would have been recording that action so I can apply the same thing. But for just two more, I think it's fine. I'm going to say image size, and I'm going to say pixels per inch. I'm going to say 72. Image size, pixels per inch. Say 72, and I'm going to say 1215, and say OK. File, save as, JPEG in the resize folder, and medium quality. There we go. Okay, and so now I'm just going to go back in to my file folder here, and I'm going to, interesting, save file, save. It might have been because I was saving inside. I'm going to shut this down and reopen, because I was even making a new folder inside of the Blender file might have upset Blender. So I'm going to say file open, say Blender, open that recent file. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to go in and just replace the image files driving the color data with the smaller size that I just saved. So this is the ground. I'm going to use the ground, and I should have saved this with like a resize name, just so that it's not. I'm actually going to do that now. Cancel. Although, will it upset Blender? We'll see. We'll see. Downloads, vectors, and objects, portal. Get rid of that 4K identifier. So we don't get confused. All right, so this is the ground. Replace it, and then we will, there we go. Replace the rock. replace the metal. All right, so now let's see what happens when we export. V for box select, select the entire thing, say File, Export, gltf. I'm going to name this Portal Textures Resize Image Text Correct Reduction. And export. I want to export as the gltf embedded. And I want to include the selected objects, Y up, geometry, UVs, normals, vertex colors, and materials. And I don't want any of the animation, shape keys, or scanning. All right, export gltf. And we can go back in and take a look. Yeah, so 1.8 megabytes. In this particular application, we have a 2 megabyte limit, so that's perfect. So now I'm going to go in and upload it to our kind of output. In this scenario is New Art City. And I'm going to say in my dashboard, go into upload artwork. And find that resized object, gltf. That looks pretty good. Great. And yep, we've got all of our image textures, and I'm going to say preview. So, looks like somebody's got, where did the portal go? Let's see. I can't tell if it's too small or too big, but I think it might be really big just based on kind of where it sat in Blender. I'm going to say 0.2. Let's see preview. Choose your own image. There we go. All right, so there is our beautiful object. There is, somebody's uploaded something, and I should probably double check to make sure it's not this thing. Somebody's uploaded something with like a ton of light, right? Like you can see like how harsh the light is on these all of these characters. So we'll have to figure out where that is. But you can see now, like trying to find the origin, like you have to roll over the center of the object to do that. And it can be really, really hard to do if the origin or the center isn't in the center of the object, right? And that was what we kind of set up in the first phase. All right, so I'm gonna, I think our objects are actually the other way. So I'm gonna scoot this. Let me scoot this down just so I can grab the handle here. I'm not competing with that other object. I'm gonna scoot this portal over into our kind of object zone. And make sure it is right click and scale, click the scale handles, and move it down kind of roughly the size. Okay. And assuming kind of a front facing. All right, so that is the basic workflow for kind of retouching OBJ files, retouching their image textures, and kind of resizing for web optimization. I'm going to do the, I'm going to show the workflow in another video for the Blender import. Or maybe I'll just attach it now. Okay. So I can just hit escape and shut down the New Art City preview. It takes a lot of the CPUs. I can hear my fan going, so that'll help, especially if I'm going back and editing. I think that this this workflow was great. We're done here, so I'm going to save file, save the Blender file, and then I'm going to say file, new, or open, and what else did we have in here? We wanted to do, all right, the security camera we couldn't import, so now the TV, which we do have a Blender file for. So you can just click on the Blender folder and it'll open up into the Blender file. And then all of the textures should come in really beautifully and since we're kind of running natively. So I'm going to turn on the textures and just double check. It'll have a little think. Awesome. Ooh. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to turn off this. What is this? Lights we don't need. Okay, so I think this Blender file is just too messy. So in this case, I'm going to say, let's see what we can do with this TV set. Probably the OBJ file. I can try the FBX, but again, I think OBJ files tend to have a little bit more, they give us a little bit more access to like all of the external files. So we'll take a look and see what it looks like. Old TV set, our textures. It's huge, but we can go in and resize those images. Yeah, those are big, big, big. All right, so we're going to go in and but we have the OBJ file and the material file. So before I do anything, I'm actually going to show you the process to batch render all of these images to the same size. So I'm going to go into Photoshop again, and I'm going to shut down the rock. I'm going to say File, Open, and I haven't brought that folder into my objects yet. I'll do that. So open the first image, and this one is actually not too bad. So we're going to resize everything to around like 1,000 by 1,000. So I'm going to open up the really big file, the first one, and I'm going to say open. And I'm going to record my actions. So under my actions tab, I'm going to say, let's see, new action. And I'm going to name this action resize (1,000) in my default actions, and I'm going to say record. And it's going to record every single move and stroke that I make. So I'm going to say image, and I'm going to say image size, and I'm going to call this 1,000 by 1,000. Say OK. And then I'm going to say File, Save As. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to name this Resize, TV Resize. And save. Medium. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to stop. And I'm going to say, I'm going to automate batch. And I'm going to ask it to do this Factory of the Sun resize. I'm going to use the source folder, and I'm going to choose these textures. Choose, and then all of that looks good. I'm going to I'm going to add the resize to the name so I know which image has been resized. Resize 1000, and then the extension. And no, I actually don't want to do that. No, I don't want to override. Maybe I'll try it, see how it goes. And select the destination folder and say OK. So now I'm going to resize and save each one of the files that exist in that folder. So I can go in and double check. TV, textures, texture resize. Yeah, and so all of those images, including the original image that I did, because I checked the override and I selected all the images of that folder, have been resized. So I can just go ahead and remove that one that I did by hand out of the folder. And so now they're all resized, and yeah, 68 kilobytes. That looks great. And 1000 by 1000. Great, great, great. All right, so those have all been resized. Now I can go back into Blender. And looks like Blender crashed. I'm going to say New, General. A to select all, X to delete. And I'm going to File, Import, gltf, or sorry, obj. Old TV set, I'm going to bring in the obj file. The material file will automatically be brought in, which will automatically bring in the textures. All right, so right now the textures are going to be set up so that they are attached to, it should be let's reconnect the image there. Oh, there isn't an image on that. Okay, so we'll change the base color to image texture and open the resize to, and let's say tab and UV editing. Something is awry. I should be getting in the UV editing. Oh, the vertices. Oh, there we go. me say A, select all. I think I can do this outside of, well, maybe it needs to be. And UV, I'm going to say project from view. Okay. B for box select over here. And I'm going to scale. T to bring up my tools. Scale. And G for grab. And S for scale. Okay. That looks pretty good. I'm not sure exactly what was going on with that kind of strange mapping, but sometimes, you know, with these models, it takes a little bit more finessing than others. All right, so that I think is okay. Let me move that back in a little bit more. All right, let's see how this goes. I'm going to need to go in and kind of update, reconnect some of these image files. So to the resize. So I'm going to go in and go into my shading node and take a look here. And this is my matte material casing, and I'm going to just replace the material casing. Interesting. Text casing, resize. Image. Casing. Oh man, there are so many of these. So maybe the best thing would be to actually just resize the original images. So I don't have to go in and do that for every single one of these objects. All right, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to say File, Automate, Batch, and then I'm going to choose the destination folder as the resize. Back to the textures. And I'm going to get rid of this nomenclature so it overwrites the extension. So it doesn't overwrite. Alright, so and so now I see that it's saved lowercase. So I'm going to uppercase that, and then I'm going to replace the original images with these resized ones. And I'm getting an error message that says, do you want to replace? And yes, I'm going to replace and apply to all. Great. And so now these are the smaller versions, which might break Blender, but let's just see what happens. Okay, so now I've replaced all of those really big image files that are connected to each one of these objects with the smaller images, so that should help. Go back into my layout, and at this point I should be able to do a B for box select, select the entire TV object, and say File, Export as a gltf, and I'm going to call it old TV resize, and embedded include selected objects and no animation. Let's see how big that file is. Okay, so the export has completed, and It looks like it's 2.4 megabytes, which is a little bit over our 2 megabyte target. But I think in the case of this television, like each one of these knobs are individual like objects with like mapped images, and I think the reduction here would have diminishing returns in terms of labor. So I'm gonna say let's call it and see what happens. So what I'm going to do now is replace the, let's see, where is it? Old TV set. So this was the original file, and you can see that the image textures didn't get mapped in correctly. And so we'll say old TV set color test. And then this is Umika RH upload corrected image textures and file size reduction. Best I can. And now all I need to do is replace the file. So it will come in with all of the same like location data and scale, information, rotation, etc. Some downloads, old TV set, open. All right, yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to say, let's preview. It sounds like chaos, but I love it. All right, so let's see. How do we let's grab the television itself and move over with your other object friends. Look at everybody dancing. It's so wonderful. And I think scale looks pretty good. Oh, look at that character. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so weird and lovely. Oh, I love it. Okay. I'm getting distracted here. But yeah, I think, next to these kind of dancing characters, the television looks like pretty appropriate for scale. So we will leave this beautiful object over here with our object buddies. I think I noticed that we'll see how this Statue of Liberty goes. I think it's a little bit big, but we'll see how that goes. All right, that ends this long tutorial, and I hope this was useful. All right, everyone, I will talk to you soon. Bye.